Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Tara Martini, along with the wonderful host, Becky McNattin. We are glad to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, Tara, I want to share a story today.
Ooh, let's do this.
Several years ago, my dad was at my house playing catch with my youngest kiddo in the front yard. I was sitting on the porch and was watching my dad throw the baseball in the air and have my son practice catching it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want you to picture this scene. And listeners, get this image in your mind.
Okay.
My kiddo is standing about 20 feet from my dad and continually sticks his little arm out with his hand in his glove as high as he possibly can, while he simultaneously uses his other hand to completely block his face and stare at the ground.
Oh.
His elbow is officially shielding his eyes while he looks at his shoes. So it's this kid with an arm stretched as far as it goes, not having any capacity whatsoever to see a thing. My dad chuckles as he tosses a ball up in the air, and it would land somewhere on the ground for my son to run over, pick it up, and toss it back to my dad. All right, so this interplay repeated several times, and as you could guess, the ball never made it into a glove. Mm-hmm. That makes it pretty hard to achieve the goal of helping my son learn how to catch baseballs. My dad, in his wisdom, starts to ask questions about why my son isn't looking at the ball. And the following exchange happened that I will absolutely never forget. My dad said, "It sure is going to be hard to catch a ball if you aren't looking at it." My son says, "I know it is, but maybe it'll land in my glove. I keep holding my arm out in case it does. I just don't want to look at the ball. It might hurt me." My dad then said, "Well, that's true. It could. Sometimes things hurt, but think about this. If we look at it, we get the joy of seeing where it goes and catching it. If we never open our eyes to see where things are, we never experience that. So it's like joy coming right your way, honey. I'm tossing joy in the air for you to catch." Ugh. My son, in his infinite wisdom, Tara, then said, "I'm too scared to catch joy.
Stop.
I'm too scared to catch joy." And in that moment, the whole world froze for me because it was a time of profound struggle in my life. And those words were completely relevant to my own inner experience. Not only was I in a time where I couldn't even picture joy, I had so many emotions around what it would be like to have it. And I hadn't even thought about the concept of catching it. I'm too scared to catch joy. Well said, aren't we all? I've been thinking a lot recently about the feeling of joy and how vulnerable of an emotion it is. So what do you think about that?
Well, that story is incredible.
Next level.
And of course, your son, because he's incredible. So profound. And I do think the more I thought about this concept of joy, it's that idea of allowing yourself to feel joy, which then, like you said, is such a vulnerable thing.
Yes.
And why are we scared of it? Because surface level, if you were to ask people, I think people would be like, well, of course I want to feel joy.
Yes.
Right? Or happiness.
Yes.
Whatever word that they come up with.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, am I worthy of joy? Right? I'm scared to do that because then I'm maybe taking the chance to breathe a little.
Right.
Right? Which how often do we actually do that?
Right.
So there's a lot more than I feel like just catching joy comes with a lot of other things.
It comes with this. It's had me thinking about how often joy is that pop fly that we are afraid to catch because of all of those factors that are included in it. You're talking about some of the outcomes of joy or even the vulnerability of extending ourselves to participate in it to begin with. I want to dive into this today and explore the emotion of joy, why we might seek it but actually dismiss or discard it entirely. Love this discussion. We're going to take a short commercial break right now, but stay tuned for more on the vulnerability of joy and a personal challenge on how you can embrace this emotion head on. Thank you for tuning in to Feels Out Loud. We will be right back.
You don't never need help from nobody else. All you got to do now. In a world full of strangers, you don't know that's right. All you see is danger.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Tara Martini, along with the oh-so-fabulous Becky McNattin. Let's dive right back into catching joy, as we did before the break.
Tara, in your opinion, what about joy makes it so complex?
Well, here's the thing, lady. I've said it repeatedly that I'm a former English teacher, and this conversation about joy is probably the most heated debate I've ever had in my years of teaching.
Okay.
So I'm so stoked to talk about it today.
Okay.
So all my former students out there can be like, oh, I remember this. So we were reading The Giver. And if you have read The Giver or heard about it, or if you have not, what you can look back and think about is that idea of society. And are we willing to have peace and things like that? But with those things, we are going to be missing certain things, like emotions, which is crazy. You have to read the book if you haven't. Well, the big debate in the book is, can one experience joy if you've never experienced pain? And
great question.
Believe it or not, 8th graders are actually very eager to talk about this because there's a debate, right?
Yeah.
So on one side, there's kids and there's people, you know, for our listeners who think, well, of course you can have joy exclusively, right? In that you just feel it. But the other side of it's saying, but how deep can you feel that joy if you've never known the opposite?
If you don't know something else deeply.
Yes. If you've never known sorrow, if you've never known pain, how deep can your joy be? Where the debate is, the deeper your sorrow and the deeper your pain is the only thing that will then allow you to feel joy at that same depth.
Interesting. Which then would make joy a really vulnerable experience. Recognizing that sorrow is a very vulnerable experience. And where do the 8th graders land?
Well, here's the thing. They, never agree, obviously, because they're teenagers and they're stubborn.
Sure.
But in the end of all the years I taught it, they all did kind of come to the consensus of, you know what, in the end, yes.
Okay.
To experience profound joy, you have to have experienced some type of pain or loss or sorrow.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that piece of, well, that is true. What is joy, right? And are we only allowed to experience it according to how much on the other end of the spectrum we've experienced?
And a willingness to open ourselves up to what that vulnerability is.
Right.
You know, speaking of vulnerability, Brené Brown is a popular researcher who studies concepts connected to vulnerability. And she shared the following quote. It's a long one. Joy is the most vulnerable emotion we feel, which is a debatable thing to begin with. But I agree with this statement. So joy is the most vulnerable emotion we feel. And that's saying something, given that I study fear and shame. When we feel joy, it is a place of incredible vulnerability. It's beauty and fragility and deep gratitude and impermanence, all wrapped up in one experience. When we can't tolerate that level of vulnerability, joy actually becomes foreboding. And we immediately move to self-protection. It's as if we grab vulnerability by the shoulders and say, you will not catch me off guard. You will not sucker punch me with pain. I will be prepared and ready for you. What do you think about this quote?
It completely changes, like, your idea of joy. When you said those things, you will not catch me off guard, as if you're talking to joy.
Yes.
You will not sucker punch me with pain. I'll be prepared and ready for you. I do think a lot of people feel that way, right? Of it is this thing coming at you where I think surface level, our society is always like, well, of course I would love that, embrace that. I wish I had more joy in my life. Where in the end, it is so scary because you are being your most vulnerable self, right? Because you are letting go and just enjoying to simply enjoy without any strings attached.
Yes.
And that is scary.
Yes. And for people who, as I was reading the quote, Brené Brown uses the word foreboding. You're a former English teacher. It's a big word.
Yep.
For people who don't know what foreboding joy means, This is that sense you have when you are feeling joy, but then in comes thoughts about what might happen to end the joy. Hey, we're all thinking this. It's part of what she's referencing here in this "you're not going to catch me off guard" joy. Okay, so it's these thoughts that come in about what might happen to end the joy, kind of like impending doom. You might still have the joy, but what this quote is getting at is you might dampen or lessen it with these possible scenarios that you create in your mind. Is there a time that you can think of that you remember actively pushing away or denying joy for yourself? As Brené Brown says, foreboding joy.
Right. I immediately thought of an example regarding my family as a whole. And we're together over a holiday. And it was the first time in a really long time, because we're on a grief journey, where you heard just like pure laughter and silliness and just us being dumb together.
Yes.
And for the first time in years, I was thinking to myself in that moment, wow, thank you for reminding me what joy looks like and feels like. So everybody goes home. There's just a small group of us talking. And I said to the group, wow, I think I felt joy today. And I distinctly remember a family member, before I even finished those words, said, "Are you kidding? There's no way I could feel joy."
Wow.
And it wasn't that this person is incapable of it. It's that I think with that came, but I'll feel guilty if I do, so I'm not going to allow myself, because I'm supposed to be a grieving human.
Yes.
And can a grieving human let joy in, right?
Beautiful
and it was
example.
So profound to me.
Yes.
It was like, wow, like there is a conscious effort that person is putting up that wall.
Yeah.
In not allowing joy to come in.
Yeah.
And not to welcome
and
joy.
Shoving it down even.
Exactly.
And perhaps judging the experience of it around things like, maybe I'm not worthy of this, or I'm not owed this right now.
Yeah.
It causes me to think about if I've known someone in my life that seems to crush joy. And I feel like we all know a person that we often share things with one another about what is hard or challenging or seemingly insurmountable in life. It feels like way less often are we sharing the things that are joy-filled with one another. And so perhaps it's because we know people who crush joy, because we know the foreboding joy. Maybe it's feels easier to join around the negativity, or maybe because of the things that you mentioned with your family member on whatever they're thinking about joy. So let's just not go there. I'll be disappointed if you've crushed my joy.
Right.
But I'm assuming that listeners at home are thinking even about like, well, when have I crushed joy?
Right.
And who do I know in my life who has crushed joy? I wanted to give a couple of examples of kind of the insidious nature of what a joy moment might be, and that what a foreboding thought might be. And I like that. And so here's a joy moment, and I'm going to say the joy moment, and then I'm going to come up with a foreboding thought. First one I have is joy moment. You just got the house cleaned, and it looks amazing.
Which for a mother is the world's greatest thing right there.
Yes. And everybody can think about that. You've spent time, you have that moment where you look around and the house is cleaned and it looks amazing. Foreboding thought might be, it's so muddy outside and it's going to look gross within an hour.
And then your joy just got popped.
Yes.
Like a balloon.
Yes. And that the foreboding thought, as Brené Brown is getting at, is trying to protect us against, you're not going to give me pain later. You're not going to give me disappointment later. I'm going to think about that now. When in that moment, we've prevented ourselves from that joy. Okay, another example. We do this sometimes at our work. A joy moment. Your coworker's just saying you happy birthday and made you a card. Foreboding thought around that could be, well, they're only here because they have to be.
Yeah.
How many times have you had that experience where you even sit there with yourself? Somebody's wishing you a happy birthday, or they're saying something positive to you, and you follow it up in your head with, well, you're only doing that because
Right.
you have to.
How genuine are you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how many people today that are singing me happy birthday actually mean it?
Right.
Right.
Yes. Another one.
Okay.
You're out to dinner with friends you haven't seen in a long time, and everyone is laughing together. Picture one of those moments.
Love.
You're sitting out to dinner with them, and everyone's laughing together. A foreboding thought might be, it's going to be a long time before we ever have this again. What do you think, Tara?
My next thought was, you're having dinner with friends. Not only it's going to be a long time, but, I know we're going to have to talk about a few things tonight at this dinner. And then your joy goes away, right? Because you think like, ooh, take it in and savor these moments. Because we really haven't talked about the hard stuff, and you usually do when you're with girlfriends at some point, where it got me thinking when I was looking over our piece for today of how many times do we do that where we get together with friends for coffee or a cocktail and all we talk about is the hard stuff that's negative?
Yes.
And how often do we not even let joy in for even other than the greeting and the goodbye to your friend? Other than that, like, you're not allowing joy.
Yes.
Why don't we focus on joy more?
And sharing the things that, not even from a reframe, but the things that are joy-filled in our lives. I was reading recently.
Yes.
The World Economic Forum is sharing that youth happiness is in a decline worldwide. So you and I are adults. We're talking about even hardships experiencing joy as adults. This is happening with youth, too. This is just from about a year ago, not quite a year ago. They share that teenagers are grappling with lower happiness than adults, when historically, adolescence is this age and period of time of optimism. And that was fascinating to me because this is the World Economic Forum. This means across countries, we are experiencing clearly an intense influence on joy at even a generational level. Maybe some of my thoughts on this are maybe we are not modeling for people. We as adults are living in not modeling what it means to share joy, what it means to catch it.
Right.
And when we do catch it, how do we hold it for a period of time?
Well, and it's that if we catch it, what do we do? Like I envision your son, like holding the glove with the ball in it. What do I do with it? But also for me, one, reading that report is fascinating. I don't care if you're a nerd or someone who doesn't like whatever, but if you read that report of that, you know, how do we feel emotions and what does it look like in different developmental stages? I will say being that person who is in that world and also looking at data through Minnesota, that part of the reason it's lower is because teenagers don't get to be as carefree as they once could be, right?
Good point. Yeah.
Now think of the pressures of college and how early we start that pressure. Think about mental health and the crisis that we're in as far as having the resources. And so to me, sadly, it's not surprising at all. But then it's what do we do with this data? And how do we allow them and bring more joy into their lives at a time where it really should just be about friends and joy and love?
And those simple moments. It caused me to do a little poll in the last week.
Of course you did.
And I asked people around me, you mentioned this kind of in the first segment.
Yeah.
Do you like joy, was what I said. Do you like joy? Every person, not a shocker at listeners, every person said to me, absolutely. So I went a little farther and I said, do you ever consciously tell yourself not to feel it or allow it? And every single person also said to me, absolutely.
Stop.
So I really thought about this because it seems almost conflictual. We really like something. Everybody said, I like joy, but also tell ourselves not to experience it. And because my kiddo is the inspiration for the show, kids are super smart, as I shared in that last segment, I decided that kids might have something amazing to say about my poll.
Well, of course.
So I posed the following question to a group of kids all under the age of 12.
Okay.
What makes joy a hard feeling to have? Here's what I heard. What makes joy a hard feeling to have? I heard 7 different statements. Well, joy is hard to have because it might be judged by someone who isn't feeling it. People get angry and jealous of you for feeling joy. 2, having joy when others don't is more lonely than just being with them and being nothing. Kiddo said that. Having joy It's so hard because you can't have joy all the time. It makes you miss it.
There's that fleeting piece to it.
Yes. You feel like you don't deserve it. Kiddo said that.
So insightful.
Another child said, maybe you could feel a ton of joy and it could all go poof. It's going to end.
There's that foreboding.
Yes. Part of you tells yourself that it's bad. A self-judgment. Wow. And then I heard joy is a scary ride. So here's what I learned. Those were all so wise. And I want to take some moments to process through this, Tara, because here's what I heard. Our challenges to feeling joy can really be divided into 5 categories.
Can I interrupt you quickly and say, you hang out with some really intelligent under 12-year-olds. Yeah. Let me tell you. So insightful, so brilliant, so mature and wise. So props to whoever those under 12 children are.
They said phenomenal things that I think highlight the human experience for all of us, regardless of age.
100%.
So what I heard in my comments from people, and then just reflecting on my own experience, our challenges to feeling joy result from impermanence, duality, guilt, external perception, and thought patterns. And so let's go through those. Yep. This first one here, impermanence. We don't want to feel joy, or joy is vulnerable, because we don't have it forever. And the disappointment of endings brings pain. You kind of highlight this in the, but would we really know joy if we didn't have sorrow? But how often does that fear of loss and that worry about, you and I hear this frequently as therapists, the other shoe dropping?
For sure. And that's a universal feel. Yes.
And we sort of tell ourselves, well, if it's going to end, I don't want to know that, so I won't feel it to begin with then. What would you say to that?
Well, what I think of is I was drawn to right away of that you and I are traveling soon. And I thought if anyone out there has ever been on a vacation, right? I feel like every one of us does the same thing. We're so excited for the trip.
Yeah.
We love every moment. And then like the second to last day, you're like, ugh, we're going back to the real world. And then we don't really allow ourselves to have that much joy that day because we're thinking ahead.
You're thinking ahead?
Where what if we just looked at whether your trip is close by or far away, if you just looked at it as I have an opportunity to experience pure joy and relaxation for these 6 days. And I'm going to do that even on the last day. And then I'm going to carry that joy with me back into the real world. Why does it have to be separate?
Great example. Yes. We think about that kind of leads to this thought of not only it ending, we think about the foreboding piece of everything, absolutely everything that could go wrong. And sometimes even before you go on the trip.
That's a good point.
You think about all of the aspects that might make you not have joy or might make the thing end. And I remember once planning a birthday party for one of my kids, and I created all these scenarios of what could happen and what make the day more fun, that I was so busy through the entire party, I didn't even interact with any of the people present because I was so busy focused on those potential negative outcomes and the tasking out of those. I missed out on being part of the joy in the moment at all.
Well, it wasn't an experience for you. And how sad to miss out on that, right?
Right. And you highlighted a really beautiful example at the beginning of this segment around duality, which is the second aspect of why it's challenging for us to feel joy. We think we can only have one feel at a time. And your family member who is talking about, I can't feel joy and sadness, or it's hard to feel joy and sadness. When you said in that moment, I think I felt joy today, did not mean at all that you didn't also feel deep despair.
Well, absolutely.
In actuality, joy and sadness, or really any other feel, can exist at the exact same time. And I think about, it was about a year ago, you and I went curling for the first time. It wasn't your first time.
So fun if you've never been.
It was this awesome moment of being on the ice. And I remember we all had to demonstrate a skill of pushing the stone down the ice. We could do a whole show on curling, I think.
Yes, we could.
And we had to show proper form to the teacher, one at a time.
It's a lot of pressure, by the way.
It was a lot of pressure. I totally loved how joyful the group was in that moment, but I was exceptionally anxious at the exact same time.
Why?
With these like eyes of assessment, the person who was instructing us wanted to know if we even knew how to do it before we could play. And so I had joy and anxiety at the exact same time. It didn't negate my joy.
Right.
I also was anxious, though.
Because there's an and.
Yes, and I think about that same kind of anxiety and joy in tandem could be a part of joy as a portion of change. For example, heading into a new job or school year might feel joyful, but we also might bring fear with us at the exact same moment. And so I think us as humans are saying, well, if it's not pure joy, then it's not joy.
Right.
Because having duality is challenging. And that duality might come with guilt.
For sure.
Something happens in our life that feeling joy almost feels like a betrayal to.
And that's what I think my family member felt.
I have a strong sense that is what was going on. It happens so often in grief. We hear a lot as therapists that joy is something that someone tells themselves, I am not owed joy. And almost as a protection against guilt, I'm not going to feel joy because I don't want that guilt, or I already feel enough guilt in grief. I can't feel joy with my person not living.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also could be part of the life experiences that we carry with us, but we notice it hugely when someone is grieving. Sometimes we feel guilt when there's a person alongside us who we feel guilty for feeling joy when they're not feeling joy too.
100%. And one of the kiddos, said that in one of your interview.
Yes, that I think any of us who are sitting with it right now, picture a time where you've been with somebody that you're experiencing a cool moment in your life, and somebody else is feeling hollow or alone, or and we feel bad for feeling joy. The kiddo said this. Totally hear that, and then we might that experience of guilt of, well, it's bad to feel this right now.
And that guilt is setting in. Yeah. And then poof, there goes your joy.
Then there goes your joy. Or you downplay or minimize your experience that has equal space. But we do that because we feel bad about it. And it makes me think about joy does not have to be thought of as a reward.
No.
Or that we are owed or not, but we do think about it that way a lot. It's an emotional response to a life moment. It's not necessarily an outcome.
Right. And I wonder where along the way we were taught that.
Yeah.
Right. Or why that is a common human feel.
Right. Well, it's a great example of what that fourth category that I was thinking about in terms of challenging to experience joy, that external perception. We learned from somewhere to do this.
Yes.
It was modeled for us. And then we as adults are continuing to perpetuate the cycle of modeling this. That we worry about judgment. What are you going to think about me in my moment of joy?
Oh, for sure. And when you made that statement, instantly a visual popped into my head of being on a grief journey. And the other thing about joy when you're on a grief journey is you never forget those moments of pure joy that you feel, because they are so seldom.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it instantly created a visual of me dancing with my cousins at a family wedding. And we have a very large Italian family. So think of like all these Italians dancing on the dance floor and so many cousins, and we're all smiling. And I remember, as I'm dancing, I remember thinking to myself, I have not felt pure joy like this in a very long time. And I think that was maybe one of the first times I'd felt it. And I was like, oh my gosh. But then after the wedding, after I got home and was sitting in the quiet, I thought, did that look bad?
Oh.
Like, were people looking at me dancing and smiling and giggling, thinking, how dare she?
Yes, well said. And you highlight that thought pattern that comes into play with a challenge of really being in the moment of joy. We judge it sometimes after the fact.
Yep.
And that expectation of a focus on the negative, we wonder how we came across to somebody else. And I think all of us can think about a time where we've actually cut someone down for feeling joy. We've judged it. For sure. Which is part of where our own judgment comes into play on what was that okay? Did that look bad? Because we've engaged in that. And that our self-protective nature might say, well, I better not do that in the future. Oh, it is.
I distinctly remember going to a student's funeral. Okay, this was years ago, before I was on a grief journey. And the mom appeared to just be very nonchalant as we're walking through the line to like say our words of support. And a fellow teacher looked at me and we both went, why is she acting that way? She's acting like nothing happened. And she just lost her 16-year-old son. And we were just dumbfounded. It wasn't until, sadly, and how horrible I felt, sadly, when I was in my own, where I was like, that mom was in shock.
Yeah.
That mom was compartmentalizing to get through her son's funeral. That, and I automatically like understood. But I was really disappointed in myself that it took me being on that grief journey to realize how often do we judge without really looking at the why behind it.
With the experiences. Yes. And sometimes with joy, if we're really honest with ourselves, our bar is waiting for extraordinary. We say joy can happen when it's extraordinary. And we don't see simple moments as joy-filled. There's a quote that a person named Damian President shares. Joy isn't a condition we fall into, but something we create through our perspective and engagements with our experiences.
Can you say that again?
Joy isn't a condition we fall into, but something we create through our perspective and engagements with our experiences. So if we think back to our first segment where I shared the joy about my son with his glove in the air and waiting fearfully for that figurative joy to just magically land in his glove, we can link that to this quote. Joy doesn't just happen. We have to engage in it thoughtfully to catch it during our daily life experiences. With this idea that it is a pop fly that's coming at us, we have to recognize that it might not last forever. It might not. You talk about that with a trip.
Right.
But no emotion does. And that doesn't mean they're bad. It would be like the giver of we know one deepest thing because we know another deepest thing.
Right.
And how would our experience of joy change if we welcomed them and actively sought them? What do you think?
So huge. Oh my gosh, you kind of just rocked my world there, where it is that idea of having the glove open, having your heart open to it, and that we are our own roadblocks. We are our own, catalyst for it can either be a catalyst for joy or the roadblock that I'm not going to experience it.
Yes.
Right? And if we open up ourselves to just go, wow, like I am, and without even thinking about it, you don't have to think about it, of allowing yourself to be in those situations where joy could creep in, right? I wrote a poem once about grief and the different stages of it. And then toward the end of it, I said, it was really weird because this other stage came in and it was joy. And I discovered it because I was allowing it. I noticed it was meandering its way through.
Interesting.
And I think that happened because of the first time I just allowed it to, right? Where I bet you it was sitting there for a long time, but I wasn't, like you said, actively creating it and engaging with my experience.
Yeah. And perhaps, I think sometimes we set the bar into these spaces of like telling ourselves maybe it's self-protection on here's what joy would be. And it's something that's really like not even achievable.
Right.
But as you said, you were holding fear or sadness and joy. Mm-hmm. You are recognizing the way that it immersed and interacted with the rest of your experience. And when we look at that concept of duality, a person named Ross Gay has a very interesting quote. What if joy is not only entangled with pain, suffering, and sorrow, but is also what emerges from how we care for each other through those things?
Ugh.
What if joy is not only entangled with pain, suffering, and sorrow, but is also what emerges from how we care for each other through those things? What if joy was an outcome of connection?
I mean, mind-blowing, and that quote should be in the book, The Giver.
Well, it maybe came from it.
My gosh, that is like so profound, the two parts of it, right? The first part, well, what if joy is not only entangled with pain, suffering, and sorrow? The fact that they are entangled, they are braided together, they are part of one another. But not only that, but also what emerges from how we care for each other through those things.
Yes.
How we hold each other in those moments, how we protect each other in those moments. I mean, it's just another like mind-blowing.
Because I think about in moments of struggle for myself, if I really think about what joy is, immersed in those spaces of people showing up for me in pain and suffering and sorrow, I did experience. It's not that joy was happiness about the moment.
Right. That's a good point.
It was a joy connection of being so witnessed and seen by another human being that I do think joy can be connected to this greater purpose that, and is contagious. Right. Joy is contagious.
Absolutely it is.
It can have these unexpected outcomes, which makes me think about a challenge to our listeners and to you and me.
Oh, yes. Let's
do a 3-item challenge.
All right.
Around joy. Embrace the spectrum. Be realistic that it is a spectrum. So embrace the spectrum. Be realistic that it is a spectrum. Number 2, intentionally seek. Discover something new. Discover something new. And the last one, let joy be contagious. That means for us too. When someone is joy-filled around us, I think we do cut it down.
Oh, for sure. And we do, the key word in that resonated with me was the let.
Let.
Like it is something that we have power over. Let joy be contagious. Not joy is contagious, but allow it to. Which is two very different things.
Yes.
Right? Let joy be contagious, or just joy is contagious.
It makes me think about watching children make each other laugh.
Oh,
and
best
I think all
sound
of us,
in the whole world.
Yeah, I think all of us can picture a moment where we've watched that kids they let a lot.
Yes, they do.
They let. And with sort of a reckless abandon. They are immersed in the experience of another person. And I think often joy does come with laughter. That we have them. It's not always, as I mentioned, joy-filled can be in a space of such deep witness.
Right.
We see joy with laughter often. And kids will just laugh with each other without having to fully know what's so funny.
It doesn't matter to them.
It doesn't matter. They can say, I'm going to let this be contagious. And what would change for us all as adults if we could immerse with someone else's joy, and if we said, this sort of personal challenge of, all right, I'm going to allow it to be contagious in my life. So those 3 things of embracing the spectrum, that joy will come as also pain will come. Sorrow will come. Yep. To intentionally seek and to be willing to try something new that might bring joy.
Right. And that is scary, but it's at the same time. And it is that idea of us reminding ourselves as humans, we can have joy and we can have sorrow. Right?
Well said. Well said. Well, we're headed to a commercial break, but when we come back, we will talk through listener questions on the vulnerability of joy. Feels Out Loud, we'll be right back to process your thoughts in just a moment. Thanks so much.
From nobody else. All you got to do now. Nothing to lose.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from all of you, our beautiful listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or one of our topics for each week that you'd like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly, or you can always email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. We truly really do want to hear from you and what you are wondering about.
Well, we had some people with big thoughts about joy.
We did. We did.
I want to say thanks to the listeners who have sent in questions about the challenges to experience joy. And we selected one because I think it's a fantastic question that is sort of the personal challenge that we referenced in our last segment. Person says, how can I cultivate joy? I really like this question because it's hugely empowered. Part of what I'd say is some of this is simply noticing.
Right. Because it can sound daunting. How do I cultivate joy? Ooh, that sounds like a big task.
Yes. In part, it's remembering my kiddo saying, I'm scared to catch it, that it actually already exists around you. We might need to notice it. You mentioned this in a poem. You noticed the way it was infiltrating in your life. So being aware of the simplicity of things. Start to, I would say to this listener, challenge yourself to notice something around you. And maybe it's something that you haven't noticed before, and then say out loud. I know this is going to sound corny. Say out loud how incredible it is that you see it now.
I love that.
I also think you can cultivate joy if we find we need to. Start with gratitude.
Yes.
To people, that's feels like people who you're close to, sharing that and expressing it. Also, a gratitude to self.
Right.
Of what you're doing to engage in the world around you. Laughter is a huge way to cultivate joy. We talk about letting it in our last segment. Let yourself laugh.
Yeah. Allow yourself laughter.
I can think about times where there have been moments that something's funny and I tell myself not to. And I think we all do this. Yeah. That joy is scary. Let yourself allow the laughter. Right. Seek that playfulness that might allow some laughter. What would you say, Tara?
I think to all of our listeners to remember, going back to the gratitude piece, that no matter how dire your situation is, or if you're in a stage of transition or change, that there is something that you can find in every day to be grateful for. And allowing yourself, it is okay to say, I am suffering, but I am grateful for this, right? And it doesn't have to be, like you said, simplicity is what's important. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a profound gratitude for whatever it is. It could just be that the sun is out today. Yes. Or, true story, looked at all my plants, because I'm definitely a plant mama, looked at one of my plants today, and I literally said to it, oh my gosh, you have a baby growing. Oh, yeah. That was my gratitude. Yes. Right? There you go. Exactly. It doesn't have to be profound. Focus on the simple, and then it's less overwhelming.
Yes. And that if we wait for extraordinary,
we're going to be waiting for a long time.
We might be waiting for a while. Extraordinary does occur, but ordinary happens lots. Yep. And the impact of mental health, joy on mental health. I want to touch on this really quickly. We had several people who asked about this. It helps us bounce back. It helps build relationships, positive emotions, and actually it does reduce burnout.
Oh, for sure. It has. It's that idea of when you experience joy, there is a physical response when you laugh, right? Yes. It's so good for your body.
Laugh in the week ahead, everybody. And thank you for listening this morning. Join us next week as we talk through the grief experience for children. And in this week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness. And everyone, your voice is one that the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, everyone. See you next week.
Some will, some won't. I want to feel just a little, just a little.